War is often remembered for its explosions, its ruins, and its silence after the screams are gone. But history has a strange way of teaching lessons where no one thought lessons could exist. This disaster, born from fear, hatred, and political ambition, became a classroom for the human soul. When the world collapsed into chaos, something unexpected emerged from the ashes. Not just strategies of survival, but truths about courage, leadership, compassion, and the fragile value of life. Today we are not here to glorify destruction. We are here to listen to what the disaster itself revealed, because hidden inside the worst moments of the war were lessons no one planned to learn, lessons that still speak directly to our struggles today. This story is not about weapons, it is about people, men and women who discovered, in the darkest hours, what truly matters when everything else is taken away. One of the greatest surprises of this war disaster was not the scale of destruction, but the scale of cooperation that emerged among ordinary people. Cities were reduced to rubble, families were separated, fear became a daily companion. And yet, in the middle of this collapse, something quietly powerful appeared. Humans choosing to protect one another instead of themselves. Strangers shared food when there was barely enough to survive. Neighbors risked their lives to hide those being hunted. Soldiers carried wounded enemies off the battlefield, recognizing the same fear in their eyes. This was not heroism for history books, it was instinctive humanity. The disaster stripped away comfort and status, revealing a simple truth: we survive better together than alone. Many veterans later said they did not fight for ideology, they fought for the person beside them. And this lesson reaches far beyond war. In our modern lives, we face quieter disasters: loneliness, anxiety, uncertainty, loss. The war taught something no one expected, that solidarity is not weakness. It is strength. When everything collapses, connection becomes the most powerful resource, not technology, not money, not power, but the courage to say, "You are not alone." And perhaps this is the most surprising lesson of all. Even in a world built on destruction, humans still chose to build bonds. That choice changed lives, and it can still change ours. Another lesson no one expected to learn from this war disaster was how much strength the human mind can awaken when everything familiar disappears. Before the war, strength was measured in buildings, armies, and borders. But when those collapsed, a different kind of power emerged: the strength to endure. Civilians learned how to live with constant uncertainty. Soldiers learned how to face fear every morning and still move forward. Children learned how to grow up too fast in a broken world. Many survivors later said that the war did not make them fearless. It taught them how to live with fear without surrendering to it. This is a quiet but profound truth. Courage is not the absence of terror. It is the decision to act while carrying it. In the ruins of cities, people rebuilt homes with bare hands. In the ruins of hope, they rebuilt meaning through small routines, sharing bread, telling stories, helping the wounded, protecting memories. The disaster revealed something science would later confirm. The human spirit adapts when it must. Not because suffering is noble, but because life insists on continuing. And this lesson speaks directly to our own battles today. We may not hear bombs above our heads, but many live with emotional wars, depression, failure, loss, and fear of the future. From this war disaster comes an unexpected message. You are stronger than the moment that tries to break you. Strength does not look like shouting. It looks like waking up again. It looks like choosing to care. It looks like refusing to become empty inside. The war showed that even when everything is taken away, one thing remains untouchable: the ability to decide who you become in the face of pain. That is not a military lesson. It is a human one. And perhaps the most surprising discovery of all was this: destruction revealed endurance, and chaos revealed character. One of the most painful and unexpected lessons of this war disaster was how clearly it revealed the value of a single human life. Before the war, life was often measured in productivity, success, or national pride. But in the chaos of destruction, those measures collapsed. What remained was something much simpler and much heavier. Every life lost was irreplaceable. Veterans later confessed that the sound they never forgot was not the explosions, but the silence after a friend fell beside them. Civilians learned this lesson in empty houses, missing faces at the dinner table, and letters that never arrived. The disaster forced humanity to confront a truth it had tried to ignore. Progress without compassion leads only to tragedy. In the middle of suffering, people began to treasure ordinary moments: a warm meal, a safe night, a familiar voice, a sunrise without sirens. Life became precious because it became fragile. This is a lesson the war never intended to teach, yet it taught it with brutal clarity. Nothing is more valuable than the chance to live another day. And this lesson still matters now. In modern times, we rush, we compare, we postpone joy. We treat time as infinite. But the war whispers a warning across history. Time is not guaranteed. The men and women who survived did not become obsessed with wealth. They became obsessed with meaning. They learned to forgive faster. They loved deeper. They lived more carefully. From disaster came a strange wisdom. Life is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how human we remain inside it. And perhaps the most unexpected lesson of all was this: when death surrounded everything, life finally became visible, not as an abstract idea, but as a sacred responsibility. Another lesson no one expected to learn from this war disaster was how fragile human control truly is. Before the conflict, leaders believed they could calculate outcomes. Generals trusted maps and numbers. Nations believed power guaranteed safety. But war shattered that illusion. Plans failed, certainties vanished, and the future became unpredictable. The disaster revealed a truth that only extreme chaos can expose. No one fully controls history. Storms of events moved faster than decisions. A single mistake could change millions of lives. A single moment could redefine an entire generation. This forced humanity into humility, not the humility of weakness, but the humility of understanding limits. Soldiers learned that survival depended not only on skill, but on chance. Civilians learned that tomorrow was never promised. And in this realization, something meaningful emerged. People stopped pretending to be invincible. They began to value caution, wisdom, and responsibility. This lesson reaches directly into our modern world. We plan careers, we plan relationships, we plan futures. And when something unexpected breaks those plans, we feel lost. The war teaches a different perspective. Control is temporary, but character is permanent. You may not command circumstances, but you always command your response. Humility does not mean surrender. It means awareness. It means understanding that strength is not domination, but adaptability. From this disaster came a quiet truth. The world does not belong to those who believe they own it, but to those who learn how to live within it. And perhaps the most surprising wisdom of all was this: when humans stopped pretending to control everything, they finally learned how to grow. One of the most profound lessons no one expected to learn from this war disaster was a new sense of responsibility toward those who would come after. When the war ended, survivors looked at the ruins and understood something terrifying. This destruction was not only theirs, it would shape the lives of children not yet born. Cities had to be rebuilt, trust had to be rebuilt, and moral boundaries had to be rebuilt. For the first time on a global scale, humanity asked a dangerous question: what kind of world are we leaving behind? The disaster forced nations to recognize that violence does not end when the guns fall silent. It continues in trauma, in memory, and in the lessons passed down through generations. Many veterans became teachers, many survivors became storytellers. They spoke not to glorify war, but to prevent its return. This was unexpected. From chaos emerged a mission to protect the future. International laws were written. Human rights were discussed with urgency. Peace became an idea worth defending, not just wishing for. This lesson speaks powerfully to us today. Every choice we make, how we treat others, how we resolve conflict, how we speak about the past, becomes part of the world someone else will inherit. The war disaster revealed that history is not only something we remember, it is something we pass forward. Responsibility is not heavy, because it is forced. It is heavy because it is meaningful. And perhaps the most unexpected discovery of all was this: the people who saw the worst of humanity became the guardians of its future. They understood what no textbook could teach. Peace is not passive. It must be built, protected, and renewed every day. From destruction came a promise: never again, if memory remains alive. Another lesson no one expected to learn from this war disaster was that meaning does not come from grand victories, but from the smallest human choices. History books often focus on battles and leaders, but survivors remembered something else: a piece of bread shared, a letter delivered, a stranger who offered shelter, a hand held in the dark. When everything became uncertain, small acts became enormous. A single moment of kindness could restore hope for an entire day. A simple conversation could keep someone from giving up. A quiet gesture could remind a person that they were still human. This revealed something powerful. Meaning is not created by control, but by care. The disaster stripped life down to essentials, and in doing so, it exposed what truly sustains the human spirit: not fame, not power, not recognition, but connection. Many veterans later said that what saved them psychologically was not courage alone, but purpose, the feeling that their actions still mattered, even when the world seemed broken. This lesson echoes into our present lives. We often believe that change requires dramatic action. We wait for the perfect moment to be significant. But the war teaches something quieter and deeper. Small goodness resists large darkness. In times of crisis, the smallest choices become moral landmarks. You may not be able to stop disasters, but you can stop despair from spreading. You can choose patience over anger. You can choose empathy over indifference. You can choose presence over silence. From this war disaster came an unexpected truth. The human heart does not need perfect conditions to create meaning. It only needs intention. And perhaps the most surprising discovery of all was this: even surrounded by death, people still found reasons to live, not in victory, but in each other. One of the deepest and most unexpected lessons from this war disaster was how suffering reshaped humanity's understanding of itself. Before the war, being human was often associated with progress, control, and ambition. After the war, being human meant something far more fragile and far more meaningful. It meant vulnerability. People learned that intelligence without empathy could become dangerous, that obedience without conscience could lead to catastrophe, that survival without dignity was not truly living. The disaster revealed a painful truth. Evil does not begin with monsters. It begins when ordinary people stop questioning, stop caring, and stop seeing one another as human. Yet, within this suffering, a new definition emerged. To be human was to resist becoming numb, to choose compassion when hatred was easier, to protect life when destruction was justified. Survivors carried scars not only on their bodies, but in their memories. And those memories became moral compasses. They taught future generations that humanity is not proven in comfort, but in crisis. This lesson still speaks loudly today. We face different wars now: ideological wars, emotional wars, digital wars. But the same question remains: how human will we remain when fear rises? The war disaster taught that the true victory was not military. It was moral. To remember suffering is not to reopen wounds. It is to prevent their repetition. And perhaps the most unexpected realization of all was this: through unimaginable pain, humanity learned to recognize itself more clearly, not as invincible, but as responsible. No one expected this war disaster to become a source of wisdom. It was meant only to destroy. Yet from its ashes came lessons about solidarity, strength, humility, life, responsibility, meaning, and humanity itself. History did not give these lessons gently. It carved them into memory. And today those lessons ask something of us: not to live in fear of the past, but to live more consciously in the present, to choose connection over division, to choose reflection over reaction, to choose humanity over indifference. The war showed what happens when power forgets compassion, but it also showed what happens when people refuse to lose their soul. This is what no one expected to learn from the disaster, that even in the darkest chapter of history, the human spirit still wrote lines of light. And now, that responsibility belongs to us, because every generation decides whether history will be repeated or understood.